What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let them burn it out. Sell them to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised.
Donald Trump is suggesting that he may run for a third term. You know, like just tear up the Constitution, shit on it, run for a third term.
Because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. Our brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves. Never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than us.
All those people who suggested he didn't he didn't respect the Constitution, and you're like, what? He loves America. Yeah, okay. He said he doesn't, he suspects he won't be running again unless he's so good, and he was talking to congressmen, right? Unless you say he's so good, we're going to figure out something else to let him run again. This dude is fucking insane, man. I was trying to think, have we ever heard him ever just be like, I was wrong, or I made a mistake, or I messed up? Other than when he's like, I made a mistake hiring this fucking libtard, you know, that kind of deal. But like, sincerely apologize for fucking up. Or has he ever said, I made a bad deal? I think that would destroy him internally. Short circuit. I think the only time I've ever heard him say it is when he's putting somebody else down. Like, yeah, that was a mistake. This idiot over here, you know, very low IQ person, should have never picked them. But that's just because they realized who he was. They came out and they admitted, like, this guy's a fucking psychopath. That's the only time. So it's in reference to attacking somewhere else.
Hey daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from
That's the
TikTok.
Linda Binda.
I wanted to make this video because I wanted to thank you for watching Cold Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. Oh, never mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Will Bird. This is Cold Beer Confessional. Thank you for joining us. Vladimir Putin did something similar as to not appear to the entire world that he was a dictator. He basically was president of Russia, right, for the maximum set of term limit. Then he got his when he ran out of time, he got his buddy elected, a good friend of his elected, where he basically pulled the strings anyways. And while doing that, got the government to change the rules around term limits and who could run consecutively and how. And then he got back in office, and obviously he's never left. Donald Trump tells the House Republicans he won't seek a third term unless they, quote, figure out a way to allow it. Trump has thrown out the idea of a third term in the White House before, despite an amendment to the Constitution that established term limits for presidents. Just a second. President-elect Donald Trump told House Republicans that he won't seek a third term as president unless they find a way to make it possible. I suspect, this is a quote, I suspect I won't be running again unless you say he's so good we've got to figure something else. Trump said while addressing the House Republican Conference in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday, November 13th. The crowd chuckled in response to his remark. According to the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution, no president can serve 3 full terms. A person can only be elected president twice and cannot serve more than 10 years total, meaning a vice president turned president could seek 2 additional terms if their initial presidency lasted less than 2 years. You know, if I was Joe Biden, what I would do? If I was Joe Biden, what I would do is all of Donald Trump's shit says 45, 47. I think the very last day or day before last of my presidency, I would step down, making Kamala Harris the 47th president and first woman president for a day or two, and then make Donald Trump the 48th. Trump has mentioned 3-term presidency before at the National Rifle Association convention in May of 2024. We've heard him say it multiple times. The former president referenced the last head of state to serve more than 2 terms. You know, FDR, 16 years, almost 16 years. He was 4-term. Trump said, I don't know. Are we going to be considered 3-term or 2-term? You tell me. The 22nd Amendment was passed in 1947 and ratified in 1951 after Roosevelt's 4-term presidency. Just before casting his ballot for himself on November 5th, the president-elect told reporters outside Mar-a-Lago that his 2024 campaign would likely be his last. Yeah. Trump is the oldest president to be elected in the United States history. Joe Biden, who is just 3 years older, holds the record for the oldest sitting president, but Trump is set to surpass him by the end of his upcoming term. The president-elect will become the 47th U.S. president on January 20th, 2025. On January 19th, if Joe Biden has such a bad case of COVID, he's got to step down. That'd be so fucking funny. I don't think we're going to let Trump have 4 years in. I don't know. I don't know that he'll make it 4 years. I think he's getting worse, right? I don't know. They claim that everybody makes excuses for Biden. Like the right claims that everybody makes excuses for Biden, which a lot of people did. But you can't be above looking in the mirror, right? How many people make excuses for Trump and the crazy shit he fucking says? The weave. You got to be very intelligent to do the weave. Very intelligent. Not everybody can do it. You got to have a high IQ. Since I no longer like Elon Musk, I found his replacement, Yilong Ma.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Ma. You are the best.
I don't think Yilong Ma speaks any English. He just knows the sounds to produce that he's heard other people use English.
Yeah. Okay. I love you. Wow. Oh. Hi, everyone.
Yilong Ma. He has a resemblance to Elon Musk. I heard one of his ones earlier, and it didn't say. He looks. So here's what I think's going on. I don't think this is full AI. It's just too good. So what I think is going on is he looks very similar to like a Chinese Elon Musk, and it's probably a filter over top of it. But here you go, Yilong Ma. Wow.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk. I love you. What? Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk.
Okay.
Never give up. Never give up.
You can tell. I feel like you can tell there's some morphing around his mouth when he's at like certain angles.
You are the best. You are the best. I love you. Wow. 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 Wow.
Yilong Ma is dark gothic MAGA.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk. Tesla. Very cool.
He makes a lot of sense, though.
Wow. Many. Give to you. I love you.
Wow, money, give to you. I love you. That's kind of how Elon Musk got people to vote in Pennsylvania.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk. Tesla.
Tesla.
Hard. Very good. I love you. Hi, everyone.
Wow.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk. You are the best. You are the best. Never, never give up. Never, never give up. I love you. I love you. Wow. Hi, everyone. Oh. Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk. English. Oh my God.
Yeah, he came out and told everybody he has Asperger's. Does he? I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I love you. Wow. Okay. Oh.
Nailed it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elon Musk.
Elon Ma.
You are the best.
You.
Yeah. Okay. I love you. Wow.
Can we trade hours for this, Elon Musk?
Hi,
I
everyone.
wish.
I'm Elon Musk.
Someone said, I'm waiting for the day Elon Ma reveals he has a PhD in classical English literature.
Yes. I love you. I love you, cats. Wow. Wow.
He must get a shit ton of views because this is always suggested to me.
Hi,
Or
everyone.
maybe they know I just need this.
Elon Musk. It's beautiful here. I love you. I love you, cats. Wow, wow, wow.
There we go.
Hi.
The classic
Wow.
Elon Ma. The Temu version of Elon Musk. Oh. When I first saw him, I thought he's American and just thought he's fucking with us. No, he lives in China. I think somebody already geolocated him from the background stuff he has. Article I shared over on Telegram. Let's hop into it. Remember how Trump's answer to everything from child care to minimum wage to deficit spending to funding, everything was just drill, baby, drill? Well, of course, that's not going to work. Trump said he'll unleash an oil boom. ExxonMobil CEO says not so fast. The president-elect Donald Trump's promise to unleash a big oil boom in the U.S. and lower gas prices is running up against a market reality. The world is already awash in fossil fuels. ExxonMobil CEO Darren Woods told Semaphore on Tuesday that while he wanted to maintain U.S. oil production at its current highs, the market was already well supplied. I don't think today that production in the U.S. is constrained, he said. I don't know that there's an opportunity to unleash a lot of oil production in the near term. During his presidential campaign, Trump said he planned to lower energy prices, including the cost of gas, by increasing U.S. oil production. We will frack, and drill, baby, drill, Trump said last month. I will cut your energy prices in half within 12 months. In September, Trump said he would reduce gas prices to below $2 a gallon. Energy analysts told Business Insider that big oil companies were more focused on returning money to shareholders than investing in projects to boost production, especially since China isn't importing as much oil because of its economic downturn. Their comments underscore how little control the U.S. president has over the oil and gas market, including prices at the pump. It's a global market, Ben Cahill, the director of the Energy Markets and Policy at the University of Texas at Austin, told BI. There's very little any president can do to change the direction of oil and gas prices. Cahill added that he expected the U.S. oil to increase production, but that it would happen gradually. The U.S. is already producing record amounts of oil in 2023, the latest year for which annual data is available. It produced 12.9 million barrels of crude a day, compared with about 11 million barrels a day in 2020 when Trump was in office. And last year, so it's not even about production that's price, right? It's an economy. It's supply and demand. So Trump had cheap gas prices for a while because COVID. But if he's claiming that drill baby drill is going to reduce the prices to where they were when COVID, well, we're already drilling 9 more million barrels a day. 9 million barrels a day more, and gas is where it's at. It's a global market. It has very little to do with fucking drill baby. They're not going to drill if it's not profitable. He's a fucking retard. And last year, the U.S. became the world's biggest exporter of natural gas. In October, the U.S. Energy and Information Administration projected that the U.S. would produce 13.5 million barrels of crude oil a day in 2025, which would be another record. And there's room for the industry to expand. Woods told CNBC earlier this month that there was areas in the Gulf of Mexico which federal leasing hasn't allowed companies to drill. That could be a source of additional oil production in the long term. Patrick DeHaan, the head of the petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, told BI that Trump could take some steps to try to boost U.S. oil production, including easing regulations to open up additional places for companies to drill and working with OPEC. It doesn't matter if he says you can drill on my fucking dead wife's grave, if they're not going to make money off of it because they're already at record highs, right? They're already producing, they're already at capacity. The more oil they make, they're going to drop their own fucking price. However, he said boosting oil production while keeping prices at a desired level was a delicate balance for the industry. If oil prices drop, you're likely to see a natural decline in U.S. oil production over the long run. So if we get oil down below $2, they're going to stop producing as much. He said adding oil companies have shareholders to be accountable to. That's their biggest concern. In recent years, the U.S. increased oil production even as President Joe Biden imposed stricter limits on greenhouse gas emissions from power plants, oil and gas infrastructure, and gas-powered vehicles to help slow the climate crisis. In a separate interview with the Wall Street Journal, Woods said the U.S. shouldn't drop out of the Paris Agreement. So this is the guy that's the CEO of ExxonMobil saying that it's stupid for Trump to stop out of the Paris Climate Accords, as Trump did in his first term and has promised to do again. The nearly 200 countries signed on the agreement struck a deal last year at the UN Climate Summit to move away from fossil fuels this decade and triple renewable energy by 2030. Woods told Semaphore that he supported Biden's limits on methane emissions from the oil and gas sector. Exxon and other U.S. oil majors have goals to reduce emissions, but climate scientists say they aren't aggressive enough to avert catastrophic levels of global warming. So again, another bullshit. Drill baby drill can't be your only answer. Drill baby drill and tariffs is all we got out of Trump the entire time he was running. And his fucking foaming at the mouth retards just ate it up. They're typing it in chats all over the place. Every time an anti-Trump video comes out, they're like, drill, baby, drill. Or someone's bitching about the fucking price of groceries. Drill, baby, drill. We're going to drill a fucking dozen eggs?
You're going to love this. And if you follow me here or on my main account, you've been hearing me say this forever. Because after blasting Donald Trump for his, wanting to pull out of the Paris Climate Accord again, now the CEO of Exxon has come out and said, yeah, that's not a thing, basically, when it comes to drill, baby, drill. Yeah, that's not a thing. Yeah, he said we're already at record production. There's no constraints on American oil. We're producing.
Of course there's not.
And
We're setting fucking records. What would be the constraint? That Biden won't let them fucking purchase a lease to drill 100 years into the fucking future?
It has plenty of oil right now, basically. Yeah. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? How many times have I told you this? For how many years have I been saying this? And here's the great part. How many people are online right now typing out drill baby drill on some fucking social media website?
There you go.
Dumb enough to believe that stupid shit. Fucking God. Oh, I'm having way too much fun with this. Sucks to suck, huh? Yeah, it does. You know it does.
And the Trump tards are taking over my local town. This is Irwin Utilities, where we live. It says, I got this in the mail today. Public meeting notice of intent to permanently cease fluoridation. This is a notify the public that Irwin Utilities Authority Board of Directors will hold a public meeting to discuss and consider permanently ceasing fluoridation of the Irwin Utilities Authority potable water supply. A time for public comments will be included. This would affect Irwin Utilities and Unicoi Water Utility District customers. The public meeting will be held December 16, 2024 at 5 p.m. at the town of Irwin City Hall, located at 211 North Main Avenue, Irwin, Tennessee.
Hey,
I don't know why people are so fucking dumb. I have no idea why they're so fucking dumb. I wish I did. I wish there was like a cure.
hey, dummies. Your fucking guy is doing his level best to make Idiocracy a goddamn documentary.
The Secretary of Defense, huh? And Funbags over there is the Attorney General.
One of his first cabinet picks, Kristi Noem, a woman deemed too unpopular for the VP pick because of her self-report of killing a puppy and leaving it in a ditch, named Department of Homeland Security head. What was her old job? Governor of South Dakota. Who's our new Secretary of Defense? It's Fox News host Pete Hegseth. Oh, God. Good trouble. He's not just a pundit. He's an Army vet. Great.
I was deemed an extremist because of a tattoo by my National Guard unit in Washington, D.C., and my orders were revoked to guard.
Wrong. He had ties because of his shit he did with Fox News and shit. He had ties to right-wing militias.
The Biden inauguration.
Seems extreme. What's the tattoo?
Remember there was like 12 soldiers that had ties to right-wing militias that were removed from the security detail at the Biden inauguration? He was one of them.
This is the one.
Is that the tattoo?
Right here. This one is what got me
Iron Cross.
disinvited. I'd never had orders revoked before.
Who else, good trouble? Mike Huckabee to ambassador for Israel. Huckabee's stance on Israel, you ask naively? Sure, deeply opposed to a two-state system and says that Palestinians need to settle elsewhere. Great. My worry is that there's a lot of empty bubbles here. Can't wait to see Hulk Hogan named Education Secretary.
It could get better. It won't, but it could. It could get better, okay? There's always that. It won't, but it could, I guess. It will not get any better. It's only going to get worse, but there's a chance. There is a chance that it could get less much worse. I don't know.
Well, soon it will be 2025, and MAGA Trumpism really should be riding high. But I want to tell you why 2025 could be the year that MAGA crumbles. Now, I want to be clear. This isn't another one of these, there's no way Trump can survive this one. This is really not about Trump. It's about Trumpism. They're going to have Trump back in office. They're going to have the Republican Senate. Red states firmly in their grip. But 2025 really has the potential to be the year that MAGA falls apart. Trump's second term is not shaping up to be the victory lap that his supporters were promised and were hoping.
Last time they could blame it on rhinos, right? Well, yeah, he had a supermajority, but everybody hated him.
For. We're seeing the cracks. They're coming from within the MAGA camp. And it's not just that Donald Trump is making hires that he is almost certainly going to have to fire, if not 2025 and 2026, because it's going to implode. And I want to go through some of what we might see next year. Now, first of all, there's the economic reality check that's heading their way, and that's going to hit hard. We talked about it on yesterday's show. The economic policies that Trump plans to implement, the tariffs, the tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations, they're not new, but they are as dangerous as ever. And in particular, when you do those, when the economy is otherwise doing pretty well, I know that many voters perceived it wasn't, and that's why they voted Trump. But by metrics, there are a lot of metrics where if you throw tax cuts for the rich and corporations and tariffs at it, your metrics are going to get worse, and it's going to be difficult to defend. And economists are warning that his tariff plans really could end up driving prices up again, so the inflation numbers are going to get going. Will they blame Biden for new inflation in summer of 2025? They probably will, to be honest, but will it work? At least I hope not. Now, remember last time under Trump, before COVID, an economy that by many metrics was fine, but manufacturing costs went up, small businesses got hit, the American consumer started paying more and more at the store. But the difference this time is that the red state governors are getting nervous. And I alluded to this yesterday. They are not looking forward to defending economic downturns to their own constituents. After all, when you have a tanking local economy, it's not a winning platform for those in the red states. If you're a red state governor who helped elect Trump, think Sununu in New Hampshire, and then all of a sudden the New Hampshire economy is struggling because of what Trump's doing, you're not going to be thrilled. Now, the upside for some of these governors is Trump can't run for re-election, so they don't have to say, no, of course I'm still supporting him because this is the last run. Businesses have already started to adjust for it. Companies are setting up price hikes, anticipating Trump's policies going into effect. And then there's the internal MAGA split that's been bubbling up for a while, which is that Trump might have united the base to win. He did unite the base to win, but within his coalition, there are some pretty significant differences. We're talking about factions that are not on the same page at all when it comes to policy, and this is going to come into stark relief next year. It's very easy when you're out and it's 2023 and Joe Biden's president to just join hands and sing kumbaya with people that really disagree with you on policy. But when you're governing, that's actually going to become an issue. You've got the ultra-right crowd who just wants to go hardcore on immigration and on law enforcement. You've got the libertarian side, the MAGA supporters who just don't want any more government control over their lives and businesses. And these groups are already clashing. They've just been looking the other way when the real enemy was Joe Biden. And Trump's administration is going to end up caught in the middle in what will probably be spectacularly backfiring fashion. Trump also is going to have to contend with the reality that his authoritarian streak is not really sitting that well with everybody. It's true that you go to a MAGA rally and you ask them, oh, what about Trump being dictator for a day? And they go, that's fine. We need a dictator for a day.
We love it. Yeah.
The hardcore supporters cheer it. They love it. They want the authoritarianism. They want the dictatorship. But there is a growing unease in large swaths of Trump's support base. And Trump's pledge to do the Project 2025 thing of appointing loyalists to the DOJ and other agencies is already causing a stir. One insider said, you weaponize the DOJ, there's no guarantee you'll be safe from it. And that's also a concern for some of these folks, which is they may be all for Trump weaponizing the DOJ against Democrats, but then if that really becomes the trend, it could be turned back against them. So what does this all mean at the end of the day? Well, the very thing that MAGA supporters thought would solidify their movement, which is having a bunch of people in it with very different views when it actually gets down to policy, that could end up tearing the movement apart. The economic fallout, the internal divisions, the unchecked...
There's already rumors out there that Elon Musk may be wearing out his welcome. So some people in the Trump campaign are saying, like, look, he fucking thinks he's an expert on everything. He won't ever shut up. He won't fucking leave. He's always around. He wants to hop on calls. And one thing, you have to let Trump have the spotlight, right? Remember him jumping in front of the fucking doctors to say crazy shit at, like, the COVID press conferences and shit?
Power that could end up in power grabs gone wrong in 2025. And so instead of Make America Great Again, you could have MAGA breaking from the inside out. Now, from the perspective of the left and of Democrats, what should be the priority? Well, I'm going to outline that later this week. And one of the priorities, it doesn't have to be done now. In fact, I think the end of 2025 into 2026 is the better time to do it. There has to be some kind of an evaluation of who are the likely heir apparents to Democratic leadership. And I don't mean leading the DNC. I mean just being the sort of obvious choices to be presidential candidate in 2028. Later in the week, we'll talk about Gavin Newsom. We're going to talk about, there are people talking about Josh Shapiro. Some people are saying J.B. Pritzker. We're going to go through a whole list. And at some point, you have to identify those individuals. But maybe more importantly, for 25 and 26, it's really having a plan for allowing Republicans to get in their own way and to have that be the reason that they fail to get stuff done, but really being ready to point the finger, because what you can't have is, imagine inflation does start to tick up, the stock market declines, unemployment goes up. To be clear, just on the record, I don't hope any of these things happen. I always am rooting for a strong economy. I don't care who's president. I always want what's best for the American people. But if we start to see those metrics tick in the wrong direction, we can't have another situation where somehow they blame Democrats. Now, you might say, well, why would they? If Trump has the White House and Republicans have the Senate, and if they have the House, where they're still counting votes, obviously Democrats aren't getting blamed, right? And you would be very wrong. Republicans regularly in that scenario say, well, we don't have a supermajority in the Senate, and we do need to build consensus, and Democrats have obstructed everything. They will still try to blame Democrats if they're unable to get anything done. Democrats need to really be sure that they know how they're going to counteract that. So we'll talk about that a little bit later on, but 2025 could be the year that MAGA starts to crumble. Trump will be fine. He'll be president. He'll do his thing. But the movement is what will hopefully suffer. One of our sponsors is Zippix nicotine toothpicks. Don't you think it's time you stopped putting smoke and vapors in your lungs? Zippix toothpicks are
President-elect Donald Trump has offered Robert F. Kennedy the role of Secretary of Health and Human Services.
Let's go live to CNN's Kristen Holmes, who's in West Palm Beach for us near Mar-a-Lago. Kristen.
So the anti-vaxxer, fucking conspiracy theorist nut job who chainsawed the head off a well, probably killed a bear, took a picture as if the bear was biting his dick, set up a fake crimes. This guy in charge of your health.
Clearly a controversial set of picks for Donald Trump in recent days, and now RFK Jr. tapped to be the Secretary of Health and Human Services despite his track record of peddling conspiracy theories.
And that's right, Boris and Bianca. And I am told from a source close to the situation that RFK Jr. is expected to accept this position as we see this cabinet unfolding. Now, a couple of things to note here about RFK. One is that there's been a lot of talk about what exactly he would do in the administration. He had indicated that he wanted a cabinet position, but we heard the head of the transition, Howard Lutnick, to our own Caitlin Collins, essentially downplaying the idea that he would be offered anything within the actual administration, likely because of the fact that there was a big belief within Trump's transition.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying it'd be like an outside thing, like he's making a weird agency for like Musk and shit.
And Trump's orbit, that RFK Jr. could not actually get confirmed. So talking to these sources, they had speculated that he might get more of an oversight role. Now, obviously, as we can see here, that is not how this played out. Donald Trump offering this very big position at the head of Health and Human Services to RFK Jr. And just a couple things to note here. One, RFK Jr. is incredibly controversial for a number of things that he has said about health, particularly the fact that he's questioned vaccines. He has said that vaccines...
He literally got kids killed. He literally got kids killed. And the only way they could stop the outbreak was to go back to this vaccine schedule they had before his shit went viral and everybody freaked out.
Lead to autism, something that there are no studies that back up. But the other part of this is the fact that he has been really pushing this Make America Healthy Again agenda as part of really what helped Donald Trump get elected to the White House. I cannot tell you the number of people who liked the fact that RFK was involved in the campaign, that they liked the messaging that RFK put out there, despite the fact that it is so controversial, and despite the fact that there have been so many things that RFK has said about health that are just simply not proven by any studies that we have. So of course the question now is going to be whether or not RFK can actually get confirmed. One of the things to keep in mind here as we talk about this, RFK is not a Republican. He has been a Democrat. He has been an independent. He does not have the same ties to the Republican Party that someone like even Matt Gaetz has. So whether or not these controversial opinions, these just downright not accurate opinions that
weaponize the DOJ and see what they find out about Matt Gaetz.
He has when it comes to health.
Let Matt Gaetz piss a motherfucker off and see what comes out about him and minors.
Are going to be something that make it through Congress. That's going to be a big question here. It is surprising to a number of people. I'm starting to get texts here from individuals who say that they had been speculating, they had heard rumors that RFK was kind of going to be some sort of health czar, but instead he has been given a very specific cabinet position and one that requires him to be confirmed by Congress.
All right, Kristen, stay with us. I want to bring in CNN medical analyst Dr. Jonathan Reiner. What do you think of this news? RFK Jr. the pick for Health and Human Services Secretary.
Well, it seems to be that he fits with the pattern that we've seen this week, which is the hiring of people that are not just unqualified for a particular cabinet post, but unfit. And as we've already heard in this segment, Mr. Kennedy has already shown over the last 10 years his penchant for not just promoting unproven ideas, but promoting disproven ideas.
Shut it down.
He has loudly promoted conspiracy theories such as the COVID virus being bioengineered to spare Ashkenazi Jews and Chinese. He's promoted the completely disproven concept.
The COVID vaccine was engineered to spare Ashkenazi Jews and the Chinese.
That vaccines are connected to autism. He's been a loud...
Yeah, that's the kids he killed, was Samoan kids. And the only way they could stop the outbreak was to get right back to their vaccine schedule for MMR. Actually, what had happened with the one kid's, I think it was a death, was a nurse had made a mistake. Right, a nurse had made a mistake. It was absolutely malpractice or whatever, but it didn't have anything to do with the vaccine. But his group, his nonprofit, blamed it all on the vaccine, was spreading anti-vaccine information. So they went through a series of kids not getting vaccinated. Then they had these huge outbreaks. A bunch of kids and adults died. And he had the ear of the leader of Samoa, telling them just to hold. The only way they fixed it was to go back to the vaccinations.
Not just skeptic, but denier.
We read the story about him.
safety and efficacy of all vaccines, most recently mRNA vaccines, which have been shown to probably have prevented 1 to 2 million deaths as a consequence of COVID in the United States. So basically, we're putting not just a vaccine denier, but a science skeptic in charge of all of the nation's premier health agencies, FDA, NIH, CMS, the agency that runs Medicare and Medicaid. It's literally putting the fox in charge of the hen house.
So, Dr. Reiner, RFK Jr. has put forward this message, this idea that he wants to gear the federal government to combat childhood illnesses, to combat what he calls chronic illnesses. He's attributed some of that to all sorts of vague causes related to food and oils. I wonder what kind of impact you
He's taking too much test.
Think having him as the Secretary of HHS could have on just everyday American life.
I think that a lot of good can come of somebody promoting a more healthy diet in this country. We've certainly seen an epidemic of obesity, and I think that approach is welcome. But his well-documented, very, very loud promotion of theories that cause a great deal of doubt in people's mind about the efficacy of vaccines is incredibly dangerous. If you want to see an example of what happens when you hire a vaccine a skeptic into a post like that, just look at Florida. When Ron DeSantis hired Dr. Joseph Ladapo in 2021, someone who was associated with a group called America's Frontline Doctors, a group devoted to
Yeah, and they got so mad at Michelle Obama for going for childhood obesity.
Vaccine skepticism. When they brought him to Florida in 2021, the rates of vaccinations for kindergartners plummeted over the last 3 years. So we see what the impact can be on people who are, maybe they're uneducated, maybe they've read things online that concern them, and those kinds of doubts are amplified when it comes from someone.
Your family owns a DMV? That must be the worst family get-togethers. Do you have to take a number at Christmas?
With such a large soapbox and a very famous last name.
Yeah.
All right, Dr. Reiner, if you could, what are we hearing in our ear?
Let's hold off on that.
Yeah, let's hold off on that. I want to bring in Jeff Zeleny, who's here with us to talk about some of the politics of this.
Tennessee changed their license. They got this like upgraded security. They got a bunch of colors on them and shit, but the photo's now in black and white and has a bunch of shit all over it.
Another bombshell here.
It is, and this is going to really test the Senate once again. We thought the Matt Gaetz thing would be the most unusual or out of the norm. This certainly is added to the list. But look, I mean, when you think of the Senate committees that will be...
To be fair, when they usually privatize simple services like that the government fucks up bad, they usually get better. The company usually makes a decent profit. Wait times are down. Ease of use is better.
Faced with the confirmation process here. These are asking some senators really to make a choice here. So providing they all go through the normal process, should this nomination actually happen, it will be a giant test for the new Senate Republican Majority Leader, John Thune here. But I mean, we certainly will be getting reaction from various senators. But a lot of his ideas simply are out of the mainstream.
To say the least.
And dangerous, others would say. Yes.
Jeff Zeleny, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, thank you both so much.
It's bad. How bad? Very. It's bad. How bad? All the bad. All the bad.
Have EVs slowed down the purchase of fuel in the United States? EVs have slowed down the rate at which fuel consumption is increasing. So,
yeah, he caused his wife to kill herself.
Decreasing in the United States.
I hope he tackles mental health then.
But the rate at which it is,
especially when all the MAGA people are fucking seeing how trolls fucking fleecing, or how Trump's fucking fleecing them. Maybe he'll be in charge of their mental health.
Increasing is slower than it would be otherwise. So if there was no EVs at all in the United States, the U.S. would be consuming about 150,000 barrels a day more of oil, or just under 6 million gallons of gasoline less a day, due to the existing EVs in the United States. Fuel consumption is still growing because we're still selling significantly more internal combustion engine cars than we are EVs. But the fuel mileage for newer vehicles is so much better than it is for older vehicles that even those newer vehicles are lowering the demand for fuel overall. 6 million gallons of gas a day seems like a lot, but when you put it in perspective, the United States consumes well over 350 million gallons of gas a day. And you can...
Damn, it's a lot of gas.
YouTube from this account or my main account, backup account, either one. Just click the little YouTube link on my homepage. You can go to YouTube, see all of the content I put on TikTok, on YouTube.
I think we already saw that one.
So give me one example. Just one example. I want you to scour the internet for days looking for one example. Because in response to me saying that not one time in 4 years did Joe Biden or any of the Democrats even utter the words Donald Trump and the OPEC 2020 deal when it comes to high gas prices. You say they did talk about it. They even cited the same sources as you. I want you to show me that. I want you to show me one single example of Joe Biden mentioning, even in passing, Donald Trump and the OPEC 2020 deal, or any Democrat for that matter. Take all the time you need, because for 4 years of the Biden presidency, it was gas prices are high, and that is the cause of inflation. That's what we were hearing everywhere. And it did not occur to Joe Biden to one single time defend himself against that right there. It did not occur to him one single time to shine a light on his opponent and his opponent.
Maybe it's because Big Oil probably fucking has money in both their pockets.
Opponent's responsibility in that matter. It didn't even occur to him. He is getting the shit kicked out of him on gas prices and inflation. And it does not even occur to him to utter the words OPEC 2020 deal. So instead, he goes to OPEC and he's like, hey, we got to get OPEC to increase production. Never says why. Doesn't utter a word about Donald Trump. Doesn't utter a word about the OPEC 2020 deal. Just says we got to get OPEC to increase production. And that right there is why half the country thinks we're getting all of our oil from OPEC. Almost like it never occurred to him there was another election that someone was going to have to win. It was all evil oil companies and price gouging, and they're not drilling. That was the narrative. So much so, Katie Porter was going out and doing videos once a week of price gouging videos and how she was going to get the oil companies. Even tried to pass the scam legislation of the Fuel Price Gouging Prevention Act, telling you it was going to lower gas prices, not telling you that it wasn't going to do shit for gas prices because it only applied to increase.
Oh, there's a retard in the chat. I knew he'd have it.
And gas prices during an emergency situation. So you all
Too bad all the CEOs from the oil companies already come out and said they're not drilling more.
Believed that
we're setting records right now. They're making good profits. Why would they?
Against that. Even though I was telling you the whole time it was a scam. Joe Biden says we're not drilling, and I show you how rig down is doubled. Katie Porter says they're price gouging. I show you how commodities work and are traded on an open market. Day after day after day, I wrote this out for you in crayon as much as I possibly could. And now you want to act like everything the Biden administration said during that 4 years wasn't said? When I've literally spent this entire administration talking about this and what he's saying and what he's doing and how it's stupid. And let's not forget the fact that surely they understand that Pennsylvania is important to winning an election. You remember Pennsylvania, the second largest natural gas producing state in the country? Yeah. So not only did he lie about why gas prices were high to further his own agenda, he completely alienated the swing state that was going to be needed the most. Fucking genius, huh? Fucking genius. And y'all wonder why he lost. And y'all believe it. So let's look at the environmental record of the person that's going to run the Environmental Protection Agency, shall we? So this is Lee Zeldin, the guy who's going on the EPA under the Trump administration. And he served in Congress for quite a while. That means he has a voting record. So let's look at his voting record on environmental protection for the guy that's going to run the Environmental Protection Agency. Yeah, you see all those red X's? That means he voted no. And this is another page. And this is another page. Oh, he got one. I wonder what that was for. There's another page. Oh, we got a couple here. 3, 4. Yeah, most of the stuff he voted for was people's right to know. Like, he doesn't vote against the ability of people to, poison rivers, but he votes for your right to know about it. So that's a good thing. Anyway, there's like 8 or 9 pages of this, and it's like well over 90% just red X's, just voting against any environmental protection. I mean, that's it. That's the whole video. So let's look at the environmental.
Sure, he's ready to protect it.
You have to get ready.
The fuck is this?
Your gas prices are about to raise by 65 cents. Last night, CARB, which is the California Air Resources Board in California, just voted 12-2 to raise gas prices by up to 65 cents in order to disincentivize people from having gas vehicles.
So we're going to talk about that because it's probably more than 65 cents because the cost assessment that was done.
So a lot of the Amish were pissed off because there was some regulation that went into place about their farming practices and selling their farming, and ended up I don't know the full story. I've read it, but I don't remember what it was. It shut down some Amish farms. They made a big fuss about it. That spread like wildfire through the community. It was some Democrats that actually did it, even though it wasn't like a Republican or Democrat point. It was more about labeling and packaging and following certain steps to be able to sell to the public. Elon Musk preyed upon that and fired these people up. Like, the Democrats don't want to let you farm. They don't want to let you worship the way you want to. They don't want to do this. They don't want to do that. And they've turned up, and the claim is unprecedented numbers. I don't think we have hard numbers yet. Some Amish vote every time. A lot of Amish don't vote at all. They take more of the mindset that God's taking care of us. We're not real worried about that. We live in our own. They almost seem like they live in their own country that they run, right? But it is what it is. They were also very angry about COVID stuff, COVID restrictions, COVID issues when Trump was president.
Was done in 2021, pre-inflation. Yeah, probably more than 65 cents. I would also like to point out that for the very first time with these new standards, Gavin Newsom and the California Air Resources Board are actually admitting that they will contribute to higher gasoline. We have not heard that before. Everything we've ever heard from Gavin Newsom is it's not my fault. It's all oil companies price gouging you.
It's a populist tactic, right? You find a pain point and you say, this is a pain point for you, obviously, like it's affecting your your family, or it's affecting your income, or it's affecting your well-being, or whatever. And then you say, those people caused it. You got to vote against those people, kind of deal, right?
I think there's been enough debunking of that, and there's plenty of people who know he's full of shit, so they're finally admitting, yes, this is going to raise the cost. But if you want to know the truth about any of this stuff, don't go to the California Air Resources Board website, because this is the biggest catastrophe I've ever seen. So this is page 1 of frequently asked questions. And what do they claim on page 1? That the LCFS, which is low carbon fuel standards, have absolutely nothing to do with higher gas prices in California. That is on page 1.
Oh, okay.
On page 2.
Of course, regulation would cause gas prices to change.
But guess what? I'm dying to tell you this. I've got an exclusive.
So a lot of people are concerned about tariffs and how that affects oil and gas prices. And this video here was very incorrect. It said we import 76% of our oil. That's not true at all. First of all, you have to look at the net number, what we import versus what we export. The net is about 15%. If you don't want to use the net and just look at imports, it's about 30%. About 70% of that 30% falls under the USMCA, a free trade agreement, because we get that oil from Canada and Mexico. And under the free trade agreement, it wouldn't have tariffs on it. And that's Donald Trump's free trade agreement. So unless he wants to violate his own free trade agreement, which he won't. So all tariffs will absolutely, raise the price of a lot of things in this country. It won't really have an impact on oil and gas. Not just because of the things I just said.
It's just going to be everything else.
Place tariffs on oil and gas. We are the largest exporter of refined fuel.
Electronics is going to be a big one, right? Think how many electronics have microprocessors in them. They come from fucking China or Taiwan.
In the world, we're the largest exporter of LNG in the world. And the retaliatory tariffs that would be placed on our refined products and LNG would be devastating. So what I'm just telling you is that it's just not going to happen. There won't be huge tariffs placed on energy. There won't. And if there is, it'll be a very small fraction of what we use and would likely result in us just getting the rest of it from Canada and Mexico as well. Yeah.
Anybody that says drill, baby, drill as a response to anything ought to be banned from holding public office, making public comment, whatever. Like, who do you think these oil companies are that they're just going to go out, drill as much as they possibly can and crash the fucking market and bring gas down below $2 a gallon so they can lose money?
Say no more overtime? Exactly. Or lower the regular pay and just tell people to make it up with overtime. So no tax on overtime means no overtime? Exactly. But
what?
Thank you for your subscription.
Look, I have no idea what's going to happen.
So I saw a pitch about overtime that one of their potential plans is that they want to allow employers to potentially give you PTO in lieu of overtime and calculate overtime on a pay period basis rather than a weekly basis. Right now it's 40 hours in overtime, right? Let's say you get paid every 2 weeks or every month. If you get paid every 2 weeks and you work 50 or 60 hours this week, and then next week you get rained out or something happens, you work 20 hours, no overtime pay. If you get paid monthly, it's even worse, right? Because they could work you fucking 70 hours 1 week, and as long as they don't hit a rolling 40 average, they wouldn't have to pay that amount of overtime.
Going to happen with taxes on overtime. All of my people are salary.
Policy that's already been thrown out there is to change the 40-hour work week to 160-hour work month. So you really could get fucked, especially on jobs that are like weather dependent, where they work you 80 hours 1 week and then next week's supposed to be rain and you get fucked.
Always have been, but that's not the point of this video. Taxes on overtime or removing taxes from overtime does not mean no more overtime. When an employee is working in overtime, the employer is still having to pay a portion of those taxes, and the portion of those taxes the employer is having to pay is actually greater. So the companies who pay their employees.
I remember when we worked on the road, we worked some fucking insane hours, and I think figuring it up one time, which I always file like single and no dependents. Because I get more money back on tax returns. You're not supposed to do it that way. You're supposed to figure out exactly what your tax liability is and get as much money as you can every week. But I didn't. Anyways, the difference between us working 72 hours and 84 hours with the tax rates that were in there for like overtime. That would be 6/12s versus 7/12s, would end up being like $40 or $50. Even though on that 7/12, if you just figured out my hourly rate at time and a half times 12 hours, it should have been a huge difference. I paid so much difference in taxes that it wasn't worth it.
Will actually fare better when their employees are working on overtime than they did before, because they'll have to pay less of their portion of those taxes. The companies don't get money. They don't get the tax dollar.
The problem with PTO, instead of overtime is that most companies, they still have to approve your PTO, right? Which sucks, especially if you want to take it. They don't want to let you take it. I know one time working for GE, I'm sure they'd never admit to this because they'd be in a shit ton of trouble. But one time we were working like 16, 18-hour days to finish a job. Shifts were overlapping where we would have 2 full crews on a job for like 8 hours of the day. It was insane. Some of us were working up to like 20 hours. The lead men and the foremans were staying over and helping and just working straight, going home, taking a shower, taking a nap, coming right back in. And I came home and I had enough hours worked out to where they paid me for like 3 or 4 more weeks on not straight 40. They paid us 50 hours. They gave us 10 hours of overtime. For like almost a month, we racked up so many fucking hours.
I don't understand.
But they gave us that option too. They're like, we got to get this job finished. We got to do this. We got to do this. So would you guys rather do this or this? And we took that option under the table.
Why anyone would think that no more taxes on overtime would mean no more overtime. That makes absolutely no sense. And just because potentially more employees would be asking for more overtime doesn't mean there would be none for anybody. The amount of labor and production needed by the company would remain the same. So no. Not having taxes on overtime does not mean, by any sensitive imagination.
The proposed plan was no tax on overtime, but changing overtime to 80 hours, I believe. every 2 weeks instead of 40 hours per week.
Or any stretch of the imagination, no more overtime. That's not a thing.
Say no more overtime.
So if for some reason you work 60-20, no overtime pay for those 2 weeks.
So I want to make sure that people understand exactly what this means, right? So we've had these text messages sent to black people across 10 states, right? You've seen the text messages they sent to black people about going back to the plantation and all this stuff. Sent to black people. They knew their names, they knew their phone numbers, they knew they were black across 10 states. What does that mean? That means there's a list. Do you understand? Someone literally compiled a list of black people.
I do think it's wild that if you go back and look, there's like 60 bomb threats just in the state of Georgia, predominantly in black polling locations in Democrat regions that were overwhelmingly black. That was wild.
Their names and phone numbers. That should be concerning. And apparently this list was sent to other people in 25 states. And they're the ones who sent out all of the text messages. Knowing that, do you still think they can't track you and your pregnancy?
Also, you remember the 2,000 Mules? So the guys from 2,000 Mules were basically using like the new Georgia law where you could challenge anybody's registration to vote. They got lists and challenged potentially hundreds of thousands of people's ballots, their registration. And tons of people were told that they weren't registered anymore, were given provisional ballots that may never clear up because they didn't check beforehand that they were still registered. Georgia passed a law this year where you could basically challenge anybody's registration. And apparently some places, True the Vote or whatever it's called, took that to heart and challenged a lot of people's registration.
See your cycle, your whereabouts, how you travel one state to another. Sure they can. Sure they can. Something to think about.
This election was a repudiation.
So that we can become a net exporter again like we did.
Hold on just a second. Hold on. Oh, I got to wrap up early today, by the way. That machine's coming tomorrow. I forgot about that. I'm going to have to be on that pretty constant. I don't know what the schedule look like this week. I'm going to be put on the excavator basically all daylight hours, so that means getting up a lot earlier than I'm used to.
Conspiracy theories.
Probably going to bed earlier, but I'll still try to make time to stream and do some Patreon stuff or whatever. We got to get rebuilt, or at least further down the road from the hurricane. The whole campground's still fucked, right? The road's not open, but when it does open, I don't want our campground where we live to still be fucked up. So we got some buildings to tear down. I got a garage to dig out. I've got a building to try to save. If you've been following my TikTok, you've already seen all this. I've got a road bed to fill in, but we got a mini X coming for a month. It's like a 10,000 pound mini X coming starting on Friday, tomorrow.
All right, guys. So there has been an explosion of liberals claiming that Trump stole the election, that MAGA rigged it. I'm going to walk you through the various theories here and then give you my take on it. So let's start easy. Let's ease into it a little bit here. This part is not controversial. It was reported all throughout the day on election day. And it's kind of interesting to me that this hasn't been discussed more. It's kind of wild that we had bomb threats in Democratic precincts all over the country. And I think in...
just me volunteering. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know. I live there, and I'm living there for free right now, but I used to work there, but it's just shut down right now. But just me for now. I don't know what'll happen.
In Georgia alone,
we've requested volunteers a couple times. Last weekend we requested volunteers. 2 showed up out of probably 100 people that told us they'd be there. But what we really want to do is get the fucking leaves gone, because we're right up against the National Forest. There's so many leaves. Like, if you don't take care of them, you'll be walking down like waist. I know there's bigger issues, but we don't be walking around in waist deep leaves. You can't even see what the fuck you're doing. So we were going to try to get all the leaves up, but it was too windy, but only 2 people showed up anyways.
were 60 bomb threats in majority black districts. So look, that is on its face, that's an attempt to suppress votes, right? And how many people didn't vote because there was a bomb threat and then they didn't get back to it later, right? So let's watch this little clip from PBS.
The ever optimistic Lisa Desjardins. Miles O'Brien is back with us. Miles, I understand that as part of your reporting, you put together that there were some 60 bomb threats, not credible bomb threats, but bomb threats nonetheless, that were called in to polling sites across Georgia. Is that right?
Yeah, 60 bomb threats, many of them attributed, we believe, to Russian sources. None of them turned out to be anything, but it did gum up the works here a little bit. But, you know, Jeff, I think the takeaway story here from Georgia is despite all of that, this was a pretty smooth election.
So again, I think that's a big deal. It wasn't just the state of Georgia, it was other states as well. And you got to think, how much did that suppress people turning out? Majority Democratic precincts where this happened.
I think Georgia had the most bomb threats, but it seemed to be going on in all the swing states.
And if the roles were reversed and it was bomb threats at majority Republican precincts, you bet your ass Republicans would never shut up about it. And they would use that fact alone to say the election was rigged. They stole it from us. So that's thing number one. Now, let's graduate a little bit here. So this is a clip from Rachel Maddow's show before the election. Okay, and I've actually played this clip for you before, and I played this clip for you in the context of there were 70 MAGA election-denying officials who are in positions of power to certify the votes in the various swing states. And the concern leading up to it is, regardless of what the outcome is, they're going to claim there's fraud and there's a problem, and we are not certifying Kamala Harris as the winner in these various swing states. So that's the context of this clip that you're about to see. But there's an interesting thing Trump kept saying on the campaign trail leading up to
the thing he was just talking about was the text messages in multiple states. So it says, racist text messages invoking slavery raised alarm across the country this week after they were sent to black men, women, and students, including middle schoolers, prompting inquiries by the FBI and other agencies. The messages sent anonymously were reported in several states, including New York, Alabama, California, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Tennessee, a total of 25 states now. They generally use similar tone but varied in wording. Some instructed the recipient to show up at an address at a particular time with your belongings, while others didn't include a location, telling these people that they would be deported or leaving the country or whatever. Some of them mentioned the incoming presidential administration. It wasn't yet clear who was behind these messages, and there was no comprehensive list of where they were sent, but high school and college students were among the recipients. The FBI said it was in touch with the Justice Department on the messages, and the Federal Communications Commission said it was investigating the text alongside federal and state law enforcement. The Ohio Attorney General's office said it was looking into the matter. Tasha Dunham of Lodi, California, said her 16-year-old daughter showed her one of the messages Wednesday evening before her basketball practice. The text not only used her daughter's full name, but directed her to report to a plantation in North Carolina where Dunham said they've never lived. When they looked up the address, it was the location for a museum. It was very disturbing, Dunham said. Everybody's just trying to figure out what does this all mean for me. So I definitely had a lot of fear and concern. Her daughter initially thought it was a prank, but emotions are high following Tuesday's presidential election. Dunham and her family thought it could be more nefarious and reported to local law enforcement. I wasn't in slavery. My mother was in slavery, but we're a couple of generations away. So when you think about how brutal and awful slavery was for our people, it's awful and concerning, Dunham said. About 6 middle school students in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, received the messages too, said Megan Schaefer, acting superintendent of the Lower Merion School District. The racist nature of these text messages is extremely disturbing and made even more so by the fact that children have been targeted. Students at some major universities, including Clemson in South Carolina and the University of Alabama, said they received the messages. The Clemson Police Department said in a statement that it had been notified of the deplorable racially motivated text messages and email messages, and encouraged anyone who received one to report it. Fisk University, historically black university in Nashville, Tennessee, issued a statement calling the messages that targeted some of its students deeply unsettling. It urged calm and assured students that the texts are likely from bots or malicious actors with no real intentions. But still, someone's, like Mr. Global said, someone's building a list of black people and their phone numbers, right, across the whole fucking country. No real intentions or credibility. Missouri NAACP President Nimrod Chappell said black students who are among members of the organization's Missouri University chapter received the text citing Trump's win and calling them out by name. Again, they have their name, as being selected to pick cotton next Tuesday. Chappell said police in the southeastern Missouri of Springfield, it seems like it's probably a Russian attack.
And that now in retrospect, liberals are looking at this and they're going, huh, that's weird. Watch this.
Let me also point out something more strange, which has been happening at the same time and it hasn't had as much attention. The day before Trump made those remarks on Friday he said, you're never going to have to vote again after you vote for me this one time. The day before that, on Thursday last week, he didn't say that people wouldn't have to vote anymore once he was elected this November. No, the day before that, on Thursday, he told his supporters, not that they're not going to have to vote again, but that they don't have to vote this time, that they don't need to vote for him this November.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes. He said that on Thursday last week. And it turns out this is something, when you look, he says this all the time now. Watch.
My instruction, we don't need the votes. I have so many votes.
We don't need votes. I tell my people, I don't need any votes. We got all the votes we need. I don't need votes. We don't need votes. We got more votes than anybody's ever had. Do you not have to vote? Don't worry about voting. The voting, we got plenty of votes. Don't worry about voting. Of all the weirdness around this campaign, this is a truly strange thing to tell people, right? Don't vote. I don't need your vote. I don't want your vote. I mean, all the surface level weirdness is worth noting.
So she goes on to show even more clips of him saying that over and over and over and over. So now liberals are looking back and going, why would you say that like 1,000 times leading up to the election? All right, now we're going to go one layer deeper. One of the claims that's being made by liberals is there's a Starlink conspiracy theory about how Elon Musk had Starlink placed over the swing states while the votes were being counted. And then there was one Starlink satellite that like crashed and burned after the fact. But they're claiming Starlink was used to mess with the vote count and give it to Trump. Basically, that's the gist of what they're saying. There's also some people on TikTok, liberals on TikTok, who are, they're like astrologer types, and they're making arguments about how this is not over yet. It's not over yet, bro. But to the Starlink point, here's Joe Rogan telling a story after the election about what Elon Musk was allegedly doing on election night. And again, this is one of those clips that liberals are now looking at and going, huh, that's weird. Here we go.
Apparently, Elon created an app, and he knew who won 4 hours before the results. So as the results were coming in, 4 hours before they called it, Dana White told me, Elon was like, I'm leaving, it's over, Donald won. He just fucking somehow or another. It's like I don't know what he's getting, where he's pulling his data from, but he had like the most accurate data in terms of the rural states hadn't put their results in yet, but yet Trump was ahead in these states. Kamala's never going to win those states, so tabulated that and put it all together. I don't know how he did it. Yeah. Dana, I haven't even talked to Elon about this. I don't know like the Dana translation, but Dana said he had an app, and he was like showing him. He's like, it's over. He fucking left. Dude just left. It's over. John Jones won. Just saying that. He just fucking left.
So, according to Dana White and Joe Rogan, 4 hours before the results, he already knew. Okay, so here's a clip from TikTok that gets a little bit into not the Starlink portion of the conspiracy, but just a general conversation about was the election rigged? Here we go.
Was the election stolen? Let's go ahead and get into this, and please watch the full video or else you're going to miss important information. So a lot of people are not happy with the outcome of the election. I'm certainly among them, but that has also led people to look at this and say, this doesn't make sense, and they think something nefarious happened. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I mean, she got about 10 million votes less than Joe Biden did in a year when we had record registration for voting. I mean, Taylor Swift put out a post and almost crashed the voter registration page from people going there. There was so much traffic. She told people to vote. Beyonce told people to vote. We had record turnout in early voting. We had record turnout at the polls, and yet somehow a ton of people didn't vote from this information. Then, in addition to that, after the election, we started seeing videos pop up like this.
I checked the stats of my ballot and it says I never voted, which is really weird because I definitely voted. Tell me why my ballot was rejected.
I think some of these are doing this for clout, though.
I turned my ballot in exactly perfectly. I even checked with an election official at the drop box.
Where's my vote? Where's my ballot? Because my husband and I both went on election day in person. They don't have a record of my vote.
A lot of posts like that going up. I've had no less than 30 people reach out to me, some who I know personally, telling me that they...
I don't know if any of this is true, but...
And then when you see threads like this one, talking about how you could go in, you had access to the code and change the code and implant. And remember, last election they said it was stolen, and they reviewed the machines, and they got access to the machines, and they tested if they could be hacked, and then they hacked them, and had access to the code. So all of this combined starts to feel very, very fishy. But honestly, what would it take to hack an election? I mean, it would take like a foreign power that wanted to disrupt our election, someone who wanted Donald Trump to win and didn't want Kamala Harris to win. It would take them collaborating with, like, I don't know, a James Bond villain-esque tech billionaire who also had a vested interest in controlling the outcome of the... Oh! You mean something like this? It would take something like this. And all of this is very compelling, but we also have to be real. This is all anecdotal. And if we're going to form an informed opinion, we have to look at all the information available. And when we look at all the information, there's a few harsh realities that seem to contradict this anecdotal evidence. One, polling going into the election and the election results is like scary accurate. Like the polling really does seem to match, especially in swing states.
Well, it was a little more pro-Trump than most of the pollsters let on, right? I looked at the predictions of all the different polling outlets, and I want to say like half of them had Trump winning, half of them had Kamala winning, but only like maybe one had Trump with as big of a margin in the Electoral College as he ended up winning by.
More importantly, though, the exit polling matches the results that we have. Exit polling exists as a way...
See, that I don't know about that, because remember when the exit polling came out, we did a segment on it, and it got like 500,000 views, and the number one issue, seemingly across the country, was democracy. Like voting to protect democracy. Now, the way I interpreted that, and many other people interpreted that was, oh, so the Democrats' main argument...
They think they're protecting against socialists.
...of like, this guy's an authoritarian, he tried to overthrow the last election, he did the fake elector slates, he did January 6th. I looked at that as, oh, this does not look good for Trump. But turns out Trump won, so then it looks like maybe some of the people who cited democracy as the reason for voting, in their minds, they were like, well, Kamala Harris didn't win the primary.
Yeah, when they break into the Capitol trying to kill people, trying to certify the votes, I guess we call it the new QAnon.
And it's very undemocratic that she's even running, and she's the nominee for the Democrats. And I think Trump is going to save democracy, or they think like, oh, all the lawfare and political persecution of Trump is anti-democratic, and that's why I'm going to vote for Trump, right? Like, it's possible people interpret it like that, and Republicans successfully flip the argument back on Democrats, or the conspiracy theories are right, then it's like, yeah, hold on, democracy was the number one issue, that should cut pro-Democrat, but it didn't? Okay, let's keep going.
For us to spot some sort of voter fraud or something that happened, if it's more than 2 points difference, I think that's grounds for an investigation. It matches. The exit polls match the results that we got, and I really, really don't think you could hack the exit polls. And even hacking our election system.
So I guess he's...
Did you not see them swinging the flagpoles as hard as they could? Did you not see the people with fucking weapons? Did you not see the fucking, the noose hanging out front? Fucking retard.
Talking about the exit polls, like, the actual, like, who did you vote for exit polls. I actually didn't see any of those, but I was referring to the issues-based exit polls, like, what was your main reason for voting?
It's a mess. All these different states running it different ways with different systems, and some online and some not, and it's a whole thing. It seems that the reality, unfortunately, is just that a bunch of Americans bought his bullshit and voted for him again.
So I showed you this video because I feel like this guy tried, like, you know, gave like almost a both sides argument here to try to break it down for you. All right, but now let me get to what I think is actually the biggest piece here, which is, first I'll show you this video. This is Steve Bannon interviewing Ken Paxton, the Attorney General of Texas. And this is Ken Paxton admitting that back in 2020, he did something that should be illegal, that basically...
Their goal was to delay the certification of the vote, although they were chanting who they would kill, including Mike Pence, the VP of their preferred candidate. But it was Trump wanted them to delay the certification so he could try to get his bullshit illegal fake electors slipped in.
Basically flipped Texas for Trump, and that according to him, he thinks Biden would have won Texas if it wasn't for his actions as Attorney General. Listen to this.
It's certainly critical to my state, and that's why we fought off these 12 lawsuits. We had them in Houston, we had them in San Antonio, we had them in Austin, we had them in the counties where you have the most liberal judges, and it was a concerted effort nationally with lots of money going into it. And just knowing that we had 12 lawsuits that we had to win, and if we lost one of them, like we lost Harris County.
Multiple people.
Trump won by 620,000 votes in Texas. Harris County mail-in ballots that they wanted to send out were 2.5 million. Those were all illegal, and we were able to stop every one of them. Had we not done that, we would have been in the very same situation. We would have been on election night. I was watching election night, and I knew when I saw what was happening in these other states that would have been Texas. We would have been in the same boat. We would have been one of those battleground states that they were counting votes in Harris County for 3 days, and Donald Trump would have lost the election.
So what Ken Paxton is saying here is I waged lawsuits as the Attorney General of Texas. I waged a bunch of lawsuits to try to get mail-in ballots thrown out from majority Democratic districts. And what he's saying is I won those cases. If I didn't win those cases, those mail-in ballots probably would have been enough to flip the election for Texas in 2020 to Biden. That is an astonishing admission. So now this is back in 2020. It's a clip. I don't know why more people don't talk about this clip. This clip is astonishing. This is basically like even though Republicans scream the Democrats.
Maybe six people.
Elections all the time. This is Ken Paxton, the Republican Attorney General, admitting he rigged an election in Texas in 2020. But that brings me back to 2024 to what I would argue is probably the most highfalutin argument for fuckery and
wrong. You guys had one fucking lady die of a drug overdose there, a methamphetamine overdose.
On the right,
you're already wrong.
That I've seen so far. So Greg Palast is a legendary independent journalist, and he's forever been on top of this kind of stuff, right? These sort of stories about elections and voter suppression and things of that nature. And I'll just let this clip here speak for itself. So here's Greg Palast on Mark Thompson's show, and he gives his take as to what went down in this election.
For me, there are a lot of different ways in which the people's voice is suppressed. The latest conspiracy theories that have been associated with Elon Musk involve the technological reach, essentially, of Starlink, manipulating data, etc. The tried and true way to suppress the people's voice is by making it harder for them to vote. And voter suppression has been taken to a high art in many of these
Here's
states.
the 2,000 mules shit.
Just probably had that parade. And when it comes to talking about that and the ways in which voter rolls are shed of Democratic voters in this case, that's the, as I say, tried and true, baked-in way.
And, you know, here's the thing, is that...
Of Democratic voters in this case. That's the... That and the ways in which voter rolls are shed of Democratic voters in this case. That's the, as I say, tried and true, baked-in way that you can, conspiracy theorists, you can sink your teeth into a narrative. And the guy who is without peer when it comes to bringing light to voter suppression, the aggressive shedding of voters from the voter rolls, is this guy right here. So glad we got him. Love his books. I love his reporting. I love his latest movie. How about it for Greg Palast? Greg, what a week you had. I know you were really doing some real-time reporting on what was happening with voter disenfranchisement. Can you give us an update, on what happened a bit? Just bring us up to speed, and then where that all stands now.
Well, Mark, it involves millions of voters. I mean, I don't think we understand in America how much what we politely call vote suppression, which is a fancy word for saying screwing people of color out of their vote, which is what it really comes down to. So, and I'm talking millions of votes. You know, for those who don't know me, Greg Palast, I'm a reporter for BBC Television and the Guardian newspapers out of England. And one thing we do in BBC is that when we announce the vote, we say so many 1,000 votes for Labour, 1,000 votes for Conservatives, and then we say how many votes weren't counted. But we don't do that in America for good reason, because the number of votes we don't count it is in the millions. And so, for example, so I have just put out a film, Vigilantes, Inc., America's Vote Suppression Hitmen. Now, we have an organization called True the Vote, which is backed by Donald Trump. They did the film 2,000 Mules. He released it from Mar-a-Lago. He's been a big promoter of their work. But
I don't think you understand the entire premise. They weren't going there to overthrow with a fucking protest. Trump had a fake slate of electors and literally wrote a memo to his vice president to push through without certifying certain states, bang the gavel, call it done, so they'd have to go back to the House and deliberate, and he had an illegal slate of electors that were supposed to support him. That was the goal. It wasn't that someone with a flagpole was going to overthrow the U.S. military.
But what people don't know is their main work is to challenge the right of voters to vote. Now, this may sound odd, but in America, unlike every other developed country in the world, anyone can challenge the vote of someone else in 43 states. This is left over from Jim Crow. So for example, in Georgia, we had one single woman, a Republican operative working for Marjorie Taylor Greene, one single woman challenged 32,000 voters. Another Republican official is the Republican chairman for in southern Georgia, a guy named Alton Russell. He personally challenged 4,000 voters. Now, who are these voters? Almost all of them were black soldiers out of Fort Benning, Georgia, where he's chairman.
A violent uprising, organized resistance against the government or its regulations. Yes, it was. Do you know what the Whiskey Rebellion was? It was an insurrection. Was their goal to take whiskey and overthrow the U.S. military? Nope.
The Republican Party there. One is named Gamaliel Turner, Major Gamaliel Turner. Now, Major Turner, yes, there's that film, Vigilantes, Inc. Major Turner was waiting for his vote. He was assigned to a base in California. There he is at Fort Hueneme in front of one of the jets there. He was assigned. He's 70 years old, career military, African-American, and he was assigned to California. And so this Republican Party operative challenged his vote and 4,000 others, almost all the black soldiers out of Fort Benning, Georgia. This is no joke. Now, you'd say, well, okay, that's a few votes. No, it ain't. True the Vote, as of August 5th, had already challenged 852,000 citizens. Now, these aren't government officials that are doing the challenging. These are individual vigilantes, self-proclaimed vote fraud hunters.
So just put that in perspective for you. What he's saying is True the vote, this right-wing operation that brought us Dinesh D'Souza's 2,000 Mules, where the whole claim is Democrats rigged the 2020 election. What Greg Palast is saying is that group, True the Vote, as they scream Democrats are rigging elections, part of their operation, the bulk of their operation, is to challenge provisional ballots from majority black districts and get those votes thrown out. It's the most ironic thing of all time, as they are claiming
fighting a cop isn't a group of organized resistance.
Democrats rig election.
You're just making retarded arguments. Someone doesn't have to be charged for it to be a thing that fucking happened. I don't. Your talking points fucking suck.
Is to try to rig elections for Republicans. Okay, keep going.
And they challenged altogether by election day. They challenged, as my producer Martin Sheen says, they challenged 2 million voters. This has not been reported on. The New York Times, Washington Post, some little stories about, oh yeah, there's these challenges there. If you're watching this on your, not just listening, but there is a woman in a red dress, Republican Party official, who personally challenged 32,000 people. I'm showing her a photo of a black woman, a neighbor of hers, who she challenged 32,379 voters. That's just the beginning.
And that is, it's perfectly legal. And that the way we're set up, that's perfectly legal. That one
well,
person.
it may be illegal. I mean, here's, according to the NAACP, Gerald Griggs, the president of
the first people that entered broke in with a riot shield they had stolen from a cop and entered in illegally.
NAACP. My film. And by the way, you can download my film, or you can stream my film, Vigilantes Inc., America's New Vote Suppression Hitman.
Once the fucking Capitol's full of violent fucking rioters, the fact that the cops opened the door to lead them away from the valuable people they were protecting is irrelevant.
At GregPalast.com or SaveYourVote.org. So go to GregPalast.com. You can stream it for free. Thank you, Leonardo DiCaprio, who made this available for free.
It's a great movie that showcases your reporting. And there's going to be a link to it under this video and under the show as well. Yeah,
so that's just one way. 2 million voters were challenged. 2 million, almost all the voters.
Explain to us, Greg Palast, what happened. So they're challenged. How do they end up in a trash heap?
Well, this is what happened. Okay, first of all, you have to understand. You're saying, well, what the hell is this? These people are government officials. Who are they to challenge voters? Well, we have leftover Jim Crow laws. The last time this mass challenge of voters occurred was 1946. 1946. That's more than a half century ago, when the Ku Klux Klan mounted a challenge of almost all the black voters of Georgia, and they elected a Klansman as governor. Now, here's the interesting thing. At that time, in 46, the Justice Department, the FBI.
This would be the same argument as there's a waterway flooding, but we have a chance to divert the water, and we may destroy a couple homes that have been evacuated, right? But we're going to destroy those homes if we divert the water, but we can save the entire town that hasn't been evacuated. And you're like, so the fucking people who control the river just directed the water at homes? Yeah. While they were evacuating the rest of Congress, and the Capitol had already been breached by hundreds of fucking angry rioters, they let other people in to drive them away from where they're evacuating the rest of Congress.
FBI moved to indict the governor of Georgia, who had won his election. He was a Klansman who won through this trickery of challenging voters. And they were about to arrest him, but he drank himself to death just before the FBI arrived to handcuff him. Now, here's the weird thing. That was 1946. It was considered illegal by the Justice Department in 1946, and yet the 1946 Klan plan became the Trump plan of 2024. And nothing has happened to stop this. That's just one of the ways that vote suppression has worked here. And I'm telling you, that was 2 million votes. Now, what happens when you are challenged? Either you walk away and say, well, I don't have the right to vote. You show up to vote. And by the way, if you've mailed in your ballot.
All those were random people, but that Master Meatball used to watch this show back when I supported Trump.
It won't get counted. About 60, I want to emphasize this. This is not small. About 60% of the American public votes early or by mail. Over half the American population votes that way. If you mail in your vote and you've been challenged by a vigilante, you won't know it, and your vote goes in the
And nobody was charged with insurrection.
Provisional ballot. Now, what is a provisional ballot? I call it a placebo ballot. The lady behind the desk says, "Oh, just fill out this form and your ballot will count, and don't go through and find your registration. Your ballot will count." No, it won't.
The person who should have been charged was fucking Trump. Dumb fucks.
If you're not on the registration rolls, you're not on the registration rolls, and you can fill out 92 provisional ballots. They won't count. They won't count.
I did not know that. That's extraordinary. I had that happen. I filled it out. They didn't because of some glitch in the system.
Well, if your vote didn't count, your vote went in the garbage, my friend. So here's what happens. Here's what happens with a provisional ballot. According to the United States Elections Assistance Commission, which is our federal agency which tracks these things, 4 years ago, there were 10 million people shunted to provisional ballots. 10 million, like you. 2.7 million went out 4 of those ballots. More than 1 out of 4 of those ballots. 2.7 million ballots, almost about a third, were never counted, thrown in the garbage, thrown in the dumpster. 2.7 million voters. Now, here's the interesting thing, Mark. If these were illegal voters, why don't you arrest them? You know, if I rob a bank, they don't close my bank account, they put me in prison. So if someone, now voting illegally, if you register to vote illegally, if you know, like they claim that they're aliens voting and people swing the Rio Grande to vote for Kamala Harris, whatever, that, you know, if that's true, then arrest them. I'm not in favor of vote fraud. But you know how many other 2.7 million people were arrested for illegally attempting to register to vote? 2.7 million. How many do you think were arrested for the crime of illegal voting?
I know the answer because I know your stuff. Yeah, it was 1.
Zero.
Right? Oh, 0. Well, wasn't that one? Somebody from Austria or something?
Oh, yes. There was about back 8. It was 12 years ago. 12 years ago. There was in Florida. There was one Austrian who registered as a Republican and voted in 2008.
Yeah, illegally, right.
Voted illegally for gain. So there was one single voter, a Republican. That was it from Australia. Again, in 4 years ago, it was 2.7 million voters rejected for voting illegally. All you have to, hey, I'm just asking you to find 2 of those people who voted illegally. Instead, now, if it were random, by the way, Mark, if it were random, hey, who would care? You know what I mean? But the truth is, if you're black,
it's not random. It's targeted at minorities.
300% higher than if you're white.
It always
is. Your ballot is ultimately rejected for some reason. If you're black, the chance your ballot will not count. We don't talk about this in America. Ballot's not counting. The chance of your ballot being disqualified is 700% higher if you're black than if you're
if you're black in America, the chance of your ballot not being counted is 700% higher than if you're white and cast a vote in America. That's wild. That's a wild statistic.
White. That's the official government figures. So we're not talking about a few votes. We're talking about millions. Now, did that flip this election? I got to tell you, for those watching on TV, on your video, I've got this fedora on, which indicates that I'm an investigative reporter. And I cannot report unless I've investigated. I'm trying now to get the numbers of ballots that were rejected, of the people shunted to provisional ballots in each state. It's just very, very difficult. I can tell you right now, when I'm at BBC, we tell you how many ballots were not counted. In America, we keep that secret because in Britain, it's a couple hundred. In the entire nation, a few hundred in the entire nation, where ballots were unreadable and spoiled. In America, it's millions and millions. So I just told you 2.7 million provisional ballots were thrown in the dumpster. We got about 1.5 million ballots. About 1.5 million ballots, what they call spoiled. Now, Mark, you don't spoil a vote.
These are the averages. Oh, this is not just this election.
By leaving it out of the fridge. You spoil a vote because they say it's unreadable. Again, if you're black, it's 700% more likely your vote will be.
This probably doesn't even include this election yet because they wouldn't have these numbers that quick.
Spoilage dumpster. And it's not a small amount. It's about 1.5 million votes. We also have the massive purge of voter rolls. There were about 24 million people who removed last year, the last couple of years, purged from voter rolls. Now, some of those are dead. Some have moved. Some have changed. But I got to tell you this. In Georgia alone, when they removed 500,000 voters from the voter rolls, I asked Amazon. And remember, Amazon knows where you live, Mark. You don't get someone else's tidy-whities. Mark Thompson's a common name. But you don't get someone else's stuff. They don't get yours. And so Amazon knows where you live. They use 1,800 data points to make sure that you live where you live. So I asked Amazon, the Palace Fund, they're experts, if they would go through the list of 500,000 voters removed just in Georgia. And they gave me back a list with the names and addresses. This is not guessing. They went through every single name. It's 340,134 people. That's a third of a million people removed from the rolls wrongly, that they still live exactly at their voting address. Overwhelmingly, these are voters of color. Now, I'm just looking at one state. I did this in Wisconsin.
Removed wrong, incorrectly, right. They're purged from the voter rolls. No one cares about purge all the fucking dead people you want. The problem is usually, or illegal voters or whatever the fuck it is, right? All we want is U.S. citizens voting that are legally registered. The problem is they use these broad methods that always get people they shouldn't have. Our justice system errs on the side of caution, right? We would rather let a guilty person walk away than an innocent person be convicted of a crime. And we try to err on the side of caution. It's always the other way around when these Republican governors go to purge their voter rolls.
Wisconsin. I asked the Amazon people to look at the people purged in Wisconsin. 130,000 were facing a purge. And they said, well, about 35,000 of these people. And again, they weren't guessing. They're giving me the names and addresses of each and every one of the people wrongly removed. And in Wisconsin, swing state, they said a third of the people removed from the voter rolls still live at their voting address. And guess what? I worked at the Washington Post, and they did a map for me, and they showed that the people removed wrongly from the voter rolls, almost every one of them were in one of two places, either Milwaukee, the black voting precincts of Milwaukee, and it was an exact match. We got a map, exact match. Black voters in Milwaukee were removed from the voter rolls, and students in Madison, Wisconsin. Did that make the difference in Wisconsin? Likely, but I don't know. Right now, I'm going to tell you again. I'm a reporter. I can't. Without the states are hiding these facts. I actually had to go to federal court to get this data.
Wow. So he's talking about spoiled ballots, which is, oh, it's not readable. We can't count this. We need to throw it out. He's talking about voter roll purges. Oftentimes, depending on the state, if there's a little mistake, you put the date in the wrong place, or you put your middle initial when you shouldn't have, or you don't put your middle initial when you should have. There's all these reasons to spoil the ballots, toss the ballots. There's all these voter roll purges. There's, according to...
Or, True the Vote just finds out that you're black and in a swing state, and they challenge your vote, your registration.
To him, provisional ballots...
Provisional ballots are very, very, very rarely remedied.
A lot of them not counted at all. So this is more the highfalutin argument of rigged elections.
A provisional ballot is when you come in and something's wrong with your registration, right? A lot of states do it. They say, well, you're not on the registration, or this isn't right, or you didn't show ID, whatever. And they go ahead and let you vote, but they have to be remedied in some way for them to count.
And it's more of a voter suppression argument than it is Elon Musk, Starlink, changing the votes type argument. So these are a whole bunch of different arguments that are being presented. Look, from my perspective, the Starlink thing, I think highly, highly unlikely. A lot of the voting infrastructure is not even connected to the internet, right? So that wouldn't make much sense. This is sort of like the Mike Lindell argument that he made, like, this county was stolen, and then you talk to the county election official, like, we're not even connected to the internet. And he's claiming it was stolen on the internet. That doesn't make sense. So the Starlink thing is highly unlikely. But this is more the highfalutin argument as to, with little cut corners here and there, little tweaks around the edges, a little bit of voter roll purge, a little bit of throw out the provisional ballots, a little bit of spoiling more ballots than you should, and boom, how many does that add up to? Now, to be fair to him, he's saying, I don't know. Right? And he's saying, I can't tell you unless I actually have the hard data and the exact numbers, whether or not this stuff would have made the difference. But here's my controversial take on this. I could not care less that liberals are doing this, because Republicans just spent 4 years denying the results of the last election wrongly in their case, because there were 60 plus court cases that were thrown out oftentimes by MAGA judges. You had the Arizona audit, which went back through the votes, and they found out not only did Biden win, he won by more than what he thought he won by on election day. They broke it down 79,000 ways, and they were just wrong. They were just wrong about that election. But they just spent 4 years denying the last election, and there was literally zero political price to pay for it. It didn't hurt them in any way, shape, or form. If anything, you could argue maybe helped them. That Trump literally ran on it this time, kept saying he won, convinced a large number of people in the public that he won, and he ended up winning again, right? And so if there's zero political price to pay, and it's like, people want liberals and Democrats and leftists to fight with their hands tied behind their back. Like, you need to abide by all the rules and the regulations and the decorum and the civility and do everything right and dot every I and cross every T. And then the Republicans get to be foaming at the mouth psychopaths and get away with everything and then eventually still end up back in power. So from my perspective, let them cook. Let them cook. I want to see the same amount of passion and anger and vitriol and unhinged arrogance coming from liberals and leftists and Democrats as we see from Republicans on a regular basis. Because what we're used to for so long is when they go low, we go high, and we're the ones who are so, we do everything just right, and we're the teacher's pets, and we make sure that everything is on the up and up, and everything is perfect, and then you get your eyes spitting on a regular basis. And so I don't see any downside to these conversations. I don't see any downside to the TikTok liberals even going with the most insane, unhinged...
Fucking do it. 4 years of the election was stolen.
...kind of conspiracy theories. I don't see a downside. It's going to be hard to get me to care. And by the way, the second the Republicans and, the right-wingers online start going after, liberal election deniers. I don't give a fuck what these people have to say. I don't give a fuck about their criticisms of liberals and leftists and Democrats. They've been wrong about everything consistently, year after year. They've been absolutely unhinged and arrogant. They paid no political price for it. So now, if you want to get a little taste of your own medicine and fight a side that doesn't have their hands tied behind their back, go right ahead. Now, I don't think this changes the calculation as to what the Democratic Party has to do moving forward. I think, regardless of what the reality is here, Democrats still need to have an ironclad narrative. Trump has his narrative. Fuck the immigrants, they're the problem. Fuck the Hollywood cultural elites, they're the problem. You need to counter that with the correct narrative, which is the problem is the billionaires and the corporations and the super PACs and the lobbyists and the special interests and the big money donors. They're the ones who've rigged our government, and that government represents them. It doesn't represent you, regular people. Democrats need their narrative, and they need to embrace a bold agenda that helps people. You need to embrace social democracy and universal health care and social security for all and ending the corruption and ending the wars. So it doesn't change that part of the analysis, right? And even in a scenario where you argue that these people are correct, well, then it's our turn to make it too big to rig, right? It's our turn to get so many people passionate and go into the polls that no matter what kind of trickery they do, nothing can stop us, right? But again, go ahead, let them cook. Let them cook. I want to see foaming at the mouth, insane, unhinged, arrogant, angry liberals and leftists and Democrats. And look, the undeniable lesson of what happened with Trump is being divisive doesn't hurt you. Being arrogant doesn't hurt you. Being unhinged doesn't hurt you. Trump was going around talking about Arnold Palmer's cock. Trump was going around saying Mike Tyson should get rid of Kamala Harris. He was talking about immigrants eating pets and cats and dogs. Being unhinged and divisive is not a liability in any way, shape, or form. So forgive me if I'm not wagging my finger and being pissed off at liberals and lefties and Democrats for getting a little unhinged on their own.
Sorry, that's fine.
I have no problem with it whatsoever. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out.
Get unhinged.
Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop.
Unhinged, guys.
Now, you want to.
Thank you guys for joining us. I gotta hop off here. I gotta go try to get some sleep. I guess I haven't been sleeping very well. But I gotta try to get some. The Mini X will be here tomorrow, and we'll be working on that, tearing down some buildings and shit. I'll try to make some TikTok content and still be in here in the evening. But if I want to do streams, I'll probably have to start earlier. That way I can get up early in the morning at daylight, I guess. Either way, thank you guys for joining us. We're going through a cold snap, too. It fucking sucks. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. Support the campground rebuild. Support me if you want to at coldbeer.fund, coldbeer.fund. And thank you, guys. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye. Good luck with your health care over the next 4 years.
But I can tell you this about if this douchebag has...
It'll probably be fine.
...show, you don't have the fork and balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the fork and balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott. Here we go. I think I started some shit.
It won't, but I think it feels better when someone tells you it will, right? Maybe. I don't know.
You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them beds, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believers? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like fool in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, eating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them beds, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen nothing yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them beds, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause cause you ain't seen none yet. I used to find clues too when I was high on shrooms. I found myself a tunnel that led to Jason Q's bedroom. Open his closet, I found.
It's gonna be cold riding a one wheel into that. I'm looking forward to that.
Flew through the roof. I found myself in orbit strapped to an F-16. High on amphetamine with Trump in between. Put on a light coat of baby oil and saluted the troops. He tapped me on the shoulder and said, "This is gonna be it." Whoa. Stop. What? I'll get my files. Wait, what are you doing? It's it. Stop. Hold on. Fucking stop. Dude, come on. It's serious.
Good night, guys.
This is my mom's an alcoholic. Oh, give me a. Oh my god. Damn it.